please join me in one more round of applause for all of our impressive award winners today. Now excused, we gotta do a quick reset for our closing panel, but we'll bring them up in just a moment. Thank you very much.
We're moving into the final stretch here. Thank you for your patience while we got set up here on stage, trying to make a quick change. Thank you all again for being here today. Really excited about our concluding panel, having an opportunity to hear from our state senator and representatives for our region. So thank you all for taking the time to be here. We have a lot to cover. We're only in the second.
How are you going to do this in 45 minutes? Yeah.
We'll try. There's a lot already happening in 2026. We're only in the second quarter. We've experienced a lot as a region. There's been a number of new budget proposals, policy proposals. So there's a lot for us to cover this afternoon. We'll do our best to get through it all. If we could first just start, if you could introduce yourself, your district, and mention the committees that you serve on, just so as a starting point.
Sure. So I'm John DeMoose. I'm the state senator from this area. Is Mike working? Okay. And so you're in my district, obviously, and my district goes all the way from Leelanau County through this most beautiful part of the state, up across the bridge to Sault Ste. Marie, which is clearly the best part of the state. And I serve on a bunch of committees. I'm on appropriations. I'm the minority vice chair of education, which means I'm number 6 out of 7 because there's 5 Democrats, and then I get to be number 6 out of 7. So it's not actually that horrible of a position. But then I'm on a housing and human services committee, the energy and environment committee, and a couple of appropriations subcommittees.
Okay. Ken McCadden, 106th House District, which includes most of all Sheboygan County and going down the coast. Presque Isle, Alpena, Alcona, Mountain Red Sea, and the northern part of Oscoda County. I sit on the Full Appropriations Committee, chair of EAGLE, which is Energy, Great Lakes and Environment. I'm the vice chair on Veterans, and then I'm a member of LEO, which is Labor, Economic and Opportunity, and Judiciary and Corrections. And I'm also the co-chair of the Northern Caucus.
Parker Fairbairn, I'm the state rep for the 107th House District. It's Charlevoix and Emmett County, and it goes up to Sault Ste. Marie in the east end of the Upper Peninsula. I have the opportunity to be the majority vice chair on the Regulatory Reforms Committee. I serve on the Energy Committee, Communications and Technology Committee, and then the Natural Resources and Tourism Committee.
Great, thank you for those introductions. Now, I wanted to start off with a question on a topic that's been on many of our minds, but in particular, many of our local leaders over the past month. So our region experienced a historic flooding event that led to many infrastructure concerns, devastated a number of homes, impacted some of our businesses as well. All of you were on the ground in constant contact with our emergency management teams and other leaders in response to this. Could you give us an update on where things are currently at with recovery efforts from that flooding event, and what have we learned from this event that we should be thinking about as a state, and how we best prepare for future infrastructure threats?
Do you want to just go in order, or do you have to?
All
right. Yeah, jump in.
Okay. Well, so in the past 2 years, we've had 2 major disasters that we have never really seen before up there, between the ice storm and all this flooding this year. And I remember I thought we dodged a bullet when we got that the big snowstorm at the end of March here, because we thought that could be another ice storm. And it wasn't, so we just had a ball with it. My family and I sat by the fire. I couldn't go anywhere. It's great, but I didn't realize that this was a looming disaster that would take several more weeks before it unfolded. But the bottom line is, there's a lot of work to be done. I think, when you look at this, one, we're looking at funding. We still haven't gotten the funding for which Parker has really been leading the effort on for the ice storm. He's done a good job on that. Cam really kind of led, I think, the response on this water. And we're going to have to see what we can get from the federal government and those type of things. But the issues are going to be a lot broader than just that. I mean, one of the issues that's going to be a big deal and I can tell you it wasn't even on my radar, is dams. We've got these lurking disasters, potential disasters throughout our entire state. And I think this has gotten everybody's attention, that we're gonna have to finally quit dragging our feet and really decide how we're gonna handle this in the state.
You know, it's still ongoing, to be honest with you. We're still not quite to that recovery period yet. A lot of the counties are just now starting to catalog damages and things that we can give to FEMA, but you know, there's still folks that have water in their homes right now. You know, I know a lot of the corporate community, the Pulte Foundation, DTE has given a lot of funds to help with just mops and buckets and things like that, and that's still going on right now. So really, we're just still trying to take care of some of the needs of people in the community. And you know, I appreciate looking forward to it, because we certainly have to, but right now there's still immediate needs in our communities that need to be met.
Yeah, I want to tell a story. My family's been on the Crooked River in that area for 5 generations, and our family's never seen anything like this. You know, we used to manage these dams when the Army Corps had them. We would drain the lakes and the rivers anywhere from 6 to 18 inches as a mitigation tool for snow melt. We'd drain them in the fall, and then the snow melt would bring the rivers and lakes back up. So I think there's a management issue we had here. I think there's a lot of different avenues we need to go as a state to really look at this. It's going to be $1 billion if we want to reconstruct all the dams in the state of Michigan. So it's going to be a substantial investment for us. But my uncle, he lives on the Crooked River. His house was totally destroyed. He had 18 inches of water, and it still has a lot of water in his house right now. And he's got 4 giant pumps pumping to the river. If those turn off in the middle of the night, his house floods back up to 18 inches in the first floor of his house, and that's been going on for a month. And you think of the cost these people are having, and that's all throughout the inland lakes and rivers. So we're looking to help these people and really get to the bottom of this in a lot of situations.
Yeah. Can I elaborate a little more? Typically, the watershed put together a really nice graphic. And to just put it in perspective, the Sheboygan Dam, which is the Sheboygan watershed, is one of the largest in the state, and it bottlenecks there at the Sheboygan River before it spills out into the straits. But the dam was equipped for 1 billion gallons a day, 1 billion, and you have 5 billion going over it right now. You know, it's not designed for 5 billion a day. And then there's 250 billion gallons that are still in the system that aren't necessarily always there. So at 5 billion a day, and then 250 billion that's still in the system, this isn't over for a while.
Thank you. Thank you for giving some additional context too, and sharing those stories. Appreciate everything that you're doing to support our communities on that. So next question that I'd like to turn to, another timely topic, state budget. So we're in the midst right now of a state budget process. Senator DeMoose and Representative Cabot, you both serve on appropriations committees and subcommittees. So I'd love to have one of you start and just share, at least first, where are we at in the current budget process?
Absolutely.
What's next?
Well, it's an election year, so budgets are going to get done on a timely manner, of course. But both the House and the Senate budgets have been done right now. So I believe today is the correct, where they get together to see how much money is actually theirs. And then the two of us, my counterpart, I chair Eagle, which is Senator Jeff Irwin is the senator for Eagle. We get together and we try and figure out where we can come to terms on that. And I think, you know, you're going to be happy with the budget when it's done. So it's kind of where we're at the moment.
I'm feeling better about it this year, but I'm still annoyed by what happened last year. I was speaking about this last night at the Michigan Manufacturers Association. I mean, how many people out here could just miss budget deadline by 3 months and not have it affect their businesses? I mean, you have to have you have a deadline, you have a deadline. This is how you do it. I mean, how many of what would happen to your bottom line if you just sort of got it done whenever you had? I was really annoyed because there were people last night, not this group, but there were people last year who thought this whole thing was funny. Thought it was atrocious. That we literally have one job that we actually have to do every year. I mean, we pass other bills, but none we're still, those aren't mandated that we pass X amount of bills. It's mandated that we pass a budget, and so I thought what happened last year was atrocious. This year, I fully expect, it seems like it's a better process going forward right now. It's gonna be a lot easier, frankly, because we don't have a lot of money to spend this year. It might be a lot less, and that makes some of the decisions not as fun, but where we can't fund a ton of extra projects and things, and that's just the fact. Everybody has that. But the bigger thing is I want this to run better this year, and then we need to resolve that we're never gonna tolerate what happened again last year. And I saw that especially with schools, right? We came up to October 1st and actually passed that. And I remember holding a meeting with a bunch of our superintendents, and there was a real concern, we weren't even gonna get it done in the first half of October, which means the schools would have missed their first paycheck, or payment, which would have been a total nightmare. But I wanted to meet with them to find out not just what happens if we don't get it done, but what already has happened. And I was really shocked. It's not the biggest thing, the one that stuck out to me the most, which is kind of a small issue, but Central Lake Schools said, well, I can tell you we didn't buy any school supplies this year because we didn't know how long we were going to have to stretch our budget. And for me to think that there's kids in my district who started school with improper school supplies because we were fooling around in Lansing makes me mad. And so the point is, I hope this year goes better. I feel like it's going to, but then we all need to be on board and make sure that this never happens again.
I did get an update. I was trying to see the consensus revenue estimating conference. It looks like there was a $350 million more revenue than they were anticipating. So more money. I'd like it to just go back to the people, but it's most likely going to get spent. So.
Well, speaking of how it will get spent, could you each share what are you specifically advocating for in this particular budget to make sure that we're really advancing Northern Michigan?
Well, we'll receive housing. Everybody here knows what housing project. You know, a lot of my district is outside of the Northern Lakes service area, so I have Alpena, and so Alpena had a request in Target Alpena, some of you all know some of the folks there, for a housing development. We got $1.5 million there to bring in some workforce housing there, so we're excited about that. And then we had a $5 million matching grant with the federal dollars. It's going to bring in $15 million more dollars for the Alpena Air Base there, the Strategic Command. Believe it or not, 90% of the military is logistics. And a lot of our bases are set up for combat readiness, not necessarily logistics training. So this is going to go, and there's going to be a federal matching for the Alpena and Grayling and Selfridge that will bring in logistic training exercises, and just will pump a bunch of money into our economy. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, I had a few projects I was really excited about. One, Dr. Finley's got to be pretty excited about this one. I got $2.5 million for their dental hygiene program that they're looking to launch, which I'm very excited about. I mean, that'll be the only one in Northern Michigan or the Upper Peninsula, so you're going to see a lot of students coming from the UP to attend this. I think you're going to need more housing. It's going to be next at the university there, but and then we got, for Lake Superior State University, I was able to get some infrastructure money for them as well to help with their infrastructure at the school. So a few good projects for our schools. I really wanted to focus on infrastructure and was glad to get those.
And like these guys, I've got a long list. I mean, it's one thing that shocked me when I came into office is how many people come with great sounding projects. You can't fund them all, but I'd like to, I mean, and some of them, frankly, aren't the role of government, so I sort of disregard those. But, you know, I've got a few projects in there that I believe will be helpful to economic development and growth up here. This really has been a top priority for me all along because, frankly, for selfish reasons, that I'm tired of watching our kids grow up and not being able to find work up here and have to leave the state. I've got 4 kids, a 28-year-old, 26, 24, and then a little surprise guy who's 12 this weekend. That's a different story. But my first 3 kids, 2 live in Virginia and 1 lives in Pittsburgh. And I miss them. I wish they were here. So some of that goes into some of the job development things. We're going to be working hard on going pro, trying to get that back into the budget. It's not in the Senate budget. I've had so many people say if we want to have build companies and manufacturing opportunities, we have to have the workforce, and this was a great tool for it. You know, one which is a big deal that a lot of people don't necessarily put their arms around down there is Pure Michigan funding. That's a big deal for us. You know, I remember when I was out in maybe 2006, 2005 timeframe, I had a project I was working on out in Los Angeles in February, okay? And I'm out there sitting in my hotel room and I see this ad come on for Michigan, and I can't remember what campaign it was, about moving your business to Michigan and what a great climate is. I'm like, there's anybody in Southern California in February buying this. But then when Pure Michigan came out, I loved what it did around the country and what it did for us, because we stopped saying, I'm from Michigan, but it's actually a really cool place. We're like, heck yeah, I'm from Michigan. And this is really important because people around the country don't know what Michigan's all about. And they don't know it until they come and they're shocked at the first sight of the Great Lakes or how beautiful it is up here. And you've got to get them here, and then we can talk to them about moving their businesses here. So I'd like to see significant funding, which has been cut over the years, quite bad.
Invested in some different small business programs, other economic development investments, and in past budgets. In the proposals, there are also planned investments in some of those different areas. What are those that you feel are most critical? So speaking beyond some of the specific project proposals and to some of the larger program areas to support small businesses and economic development.
Yeah, I think there's a few of them, and I think housing ties into all of those, frankly. I was on our brownfield board. I know there was a few folks in here that were on that, and those are good programs that take these underutilized areas and communities. You invest money in them, whether it's a housing project or a company or an industrial park. You take these underutilized areas and communities and build them up. I'd like to see some more investment in that. I know that's a priority of some in our caucus, but I think that's a good area to start.
Yeah, no, I know Oprah was a concern or was a question. Obviously, property rehab. A lot of folks have use that as a tool for economic development, and it was one of the governor's priorities and one that I support. But unfortunately, it's kind of stalled. You know, like a lot of things do down in Lansing. They use it as a political chip because the governor wants it and the House wants it, so we can negotiate it. And sometimes there's a lot of brinksmanship down there. You mentioned how the budget went late and things, but a lot of that's just to leverage, you know, the give and take, the normal give and take of how government works. And that's one tool that I'd like to see happen. And I think it will happen, but it's not going to happen till it's time, and that's closer to the budgets.
If your question also seems like it's about bigger picture type of things related to, and I really think we need to get our head on straight as to, and decide as a state, how do we want to approach economic development? And I can tell you a couple stories on that. One is, I serve on the Appropriations Committee and have struck up a nice relationship with this Mallory McMorrow, who's a senator. She's running for U.S. Senate. She and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum politically. I mean, we don't think alike on a lot of issues, but she's a nice person. We get along well. But we both got tired of watching, like I said, these long lists of projects coming in. If we get them, you know, all of a sudden, hey, can you vote for this? It's a plant here, or it's a development here, or it's a development. All these projects that had no rhyme or reason behind them. And so we kind of came together, and those bills aren't going to happen. It's just to get the conversation started, but we introduced a couple of bills to help develop a 10-year economic development plan for the state so that we have some idea of a roadmap of what we think we should be prioritizing and something to benchmark against rather than just these constant straight with one-off projects. And you know, it was confirmed to me where I supported a project with Ford Motor Company, because Ford is the ultimate Michigan company. And they told me after I'd already supported this, so they weren't still trying to convince me, but they said, John, do you realize if we need to get this project, we'll never build another thing in the state of Michigan again. Wait, why? Why? She said, because we never know what we're going to get from you. 1 minute you love us, the next minute you hate us, 1 minute you want us here, next minute you don't. We go into other states and they roll out the red carpet, they're consistent, both sides of the aisle are supportive, they're glad they're there, they like the jobs. And so I think this is, I don't know that there's a specific dollar and cents attached to this, but we've got to figure this out, because what I like to say is we used to know exactly who we were as a state. We built great things and we played outside all year round. I mean, almost everything we do fits in those two categories. And I think if you ask people now, we're floundering.
We have heard that a lot, that Michigan has developed a a pattern of inconsistency in how we're supporting businesses and economic development, and our partners elsewhere in the state or our counterparts elsewhere in the country wonder sometimes what our priorities are. So,
Can I add you a real
yes.
good example? On that Ford project, and I get criticized because it was a battery plant. They're actually building it. I don't really care that much about electric vehicles, but they are gonna be part of our fleet, and if they are, I'd like to build it here and not somewhere else. But forget that. Forget what they're building. I say it in jest, they could have been making fairy dust, and I would have supported it, because we need to do things to keep our main companies here. But I supported this bill, and it was controversial and all this stuff. It was a project. 2 weeks later, they vote and get rid of right to work, which is the only reason South Carolina and Kentucky and Tennessee and any of these places even have an automobile industry is because they were a right to work state when we were not. They had favorable corporate tax structures when we did not. And 2 weeks after spending all this money at the Ford plant, which we didn't end up even spending nearly what we had committed at the 2 weeks after spending that money, we get rid of right to work, which is why they left in the beginning. So that's what, there's no rhyme or reason. So,
Representative
You
Cavan?
know, what is it to say, here's the new boss, same as the old, or meet the new boss, same as the old boss. You know, or we're singing the same song, you know, cutting red tape, regulatory environment, reliable energy costs. Those are all things that we need to our businesses. And it seems, I've sat in this audience and watched other politicians come up here and say the same things, but it just seems like it's difficult to get done sometimes. And we need to, both sides of the aisle to work on that in order to get it done. And just right now, that environment is not what I see the way it's unfortunately.
Representative Fairburn, anything like that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've only been in office for a year and a half, so I'm fairly new, and I was pretty optimistic going down there, but I've gotten quite jaded since I've been down there. The process and the politics, I mean, it's a nasty business, but there's a few things that I really, really like about the job. And it's the serving the people and going down there knowing you're serving 95,000 people who, in some way, you're their voice down there in Lansing. But for me, I think of these programs, I think of SOAR, for example. It was the governor's big program to get companies into the state of Michigan. And it was a hunting mentality, and Governor Snyder uses this example a lot, where he tried to garden and create an environment that would attract businesses into Michigan, where Governor Whitmer's taken a different approach, where she's really hunting and waving $1 billion at big companies to come into the state of Michigan and giving them a check. And we really need to go away from that model and attract small business, medium businesses, and large businesses across the state of Michigan. And I think the way you do that is, there's a proposal in the House right now that, you know, if you're going to create one job, you get this much money, and that would affect every business, no matter small or big. So I do think there's some good conversations happening, but it's moving slow in Lansing right now.
Could you build on that a little bit? I'm sure a lot of folks in the audience may not have the background on that bill.
Sure, you know, it's in flux. I mean, it hasn't passed out of the House yet. I think it's still sitting in the Economic Competitiveness Committee, but the chairman of that, his plan, I mean, it's very simple, and I explained it, but so if you're a small business, we'll have this pot of money in the state government. It could be $100, $200, $300 million. It'll probably be more than that. But you would be able to apply into this program, and if you're a small business, a cookie shop, let's say, and you want to create a job, you could make this application, and those dollars would be available to you. I think it's a much more fair approach to economic development in Michigan and job creation. To know those dollars are there, all you have to do is expand your business, grow your business, and create those jobs.
Great, thank you. Kind of sticking along this track, another concern that NLEA hears quite often, this is from our businesses that are currently operating here in the region. We hear a lot of concerns about those who are growing and or have plans for growth and they're looking around and thinking, where are we going to be able to expand in this region that has an investment-ready site, access to the necessary infrastructure to be able to expand. 74% of respondents to our Economic Pulse survey said that they have plans to expand in the next 4 years. That's really exciting for us, but how do we make sure that we have those investment-ready sites to be able to support the continued growth of those businesses? And, you know, a lot of times we talk about site readiness and you think of these massive mega sites downstate, but what we're talking about are the businesses who are already here. And when we look at the numbers, it's typically 25 employees or less at these companies, and they span industries from manufacturing to value-added agriculture. So it's how would you say we should be as a state supporting allowing those businesses to continue growing here, ensuring that we have those investment-ready sites with the necessary infrastructure?
Well, I mean, this is an ongoing refrain down there that we did skew potentially as a state to, you know, got enticed by some of these gigantic projects, most of which don't come up here. And so I think that an overwhelming dialogue that's going on right now is to whatever programs we do come up with need to be available for smaller communities too. So if we're talking site readiness, it doesn't have to be just these gigantic mega sites. What are we going to do? And there are various proposals out there to allow to help for other types of, you know, for smaller sites and for smaller companies. A lot of this though too is you guys got, one thing I will say is that a lot of people come to Lansing looking for answers when the roadblocks aren't necessarily even in Lansing, they're at home. And housing's a great example. Housing is one thing that's holding back every business in this room, I guarantee it. And you come to Lansing and what can we do to fix housing? We've tried some innovative things here and there. But then you'll go to a local community and they have all kinds of rules and regulations that don't allow you to build workforce housing. And so until we decide as a community that we want to address this problem and are serious at the local level, then we're not actually, there's nothing we can do in Lansing about it. And there's nothing we should, let me point out something. There's nothing we should do because there is a big proposal right now out there. I think somebody has been introduced in the House for this statewide zoning. I will not vote for this in a million years, even though some of the ideas on there are very good. If they are good, I know Dickie probably is mad at me for not voting. Okay. I was going to say, oh, good. Okay, I'm wrong. You're kind of giving me that look. But the point is, I think there's some very good ideas in these bills. And if they're excellent ideas, then you should go to Traverse City and convince them they should adopt them. Or you should go to Petoskey and convince them to adopt them. And I think the same thing is true with some of the business things that we're looking at. You know, if you want more industry, zone it different. Maybe you need to look at some of these regulations locally. So,
Well, and we are speaking with a number of communities that they are interested and they already have the area zone for industrial or light industrial, or they're looking to potentially rezone to accommodate those industries. The biggest hurdle seems to be with infrastructure. So water and sewer, and Representative Fairburn, you spoke to investing in infrastructure. Anything else we should be thinking about as a state and how we invest in that type of infrastructure in our communities, because that will continue to be a hurdle given how significant the cost is.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, a lot of this stuff isn't going to happen this year, most likely. I think it's going to take a change in these departments, a mentality in these departments. There's going to be a new governor, a mix-up in everything's on the ballot this year. So what I would say, like, I think of Houston as an example. NLEA it might have even been before you were here, Peyton, but there's this conversation of Houston could be a hub for industry. You have an amazing regional airport. You're 5 miles away from I-75 to transport goods, but they don't have the water, they don't have the electricity. They need a lot of development, sewage, all sorts of stuff. And if you could get that, then businesses would be able to come in. But that's tens of millions of dollars, probably even hundreds of millions of dollars of investment in these areas to create these opportunities. So I do think there needs to be a statewide program, but things we run into as being from Northern Michigan legislators, you know, there's 148 decision makers in Lansing, and there's about 20 of us who are above US 10, and the other 128 are downstate folks. So our voice is small, but when we come together and really advocate as one voice, the 20 of us, we can make change on this and make sure our priorities are listed there. So
That's the importance of what you're doing.
Yeah, if I give a quick plug for our Northern Caucus, we've reestablished in years past, Senator Allen and I were very strong in that, but we reestablished, and I co-chair this with John Roth. And so if any of you would like to come and talk about your issues to our Northern Caucus, we'd be very open to, you know, we need a sponsor to attract some folks in, but you know, we get a very good attendance to those, and we learn a lot about the issues, because we're not experts on everything. We rely on everybody to come and help educate us on what the needs are. But if we go back to John and housing there for a second, housing and local zoning, I can't say enough about how a lot of these hiccups that are in our housing are done at the local issues. And John said there's some things in there that's not good, but there are things that are good. And I like accessory dwelling units where we can put more density into our local areas. You know, I just don't see why local government, if I want to have a garage in a hall where my mother-in-law stays and I'm homesteading my property, why she cannot be there. But very few of these local governments out here will do that. And at the county level, we've got square footage issues, you know, where you can't build certain size. But as long as that house or the structure that you're building is up to VOCA codes, you know, building standards, I do not see why local government should be in the way of doing that.
And you're speaking to the housing readiness bill package?
That's correct, and that's going to be a big issue. We're going to have to vote on that, and that's a game changer for that. So
that's yeah. I mean, if we're transitioning to housing here, I've taken a really different approach. I think the regulatory space is really where we can see a lot of reductions in cost to build. The governor is really interested in a bill I have, a single staircase bill. It's not, you know, bill I shout from the rooftops about, but on these multifamily homes, you have to have two exits in them, two sets of staircases, and that extra staircase in some situations adds $100,000 to the cost to build a multifamily dwelling. So we said, let's do one staircase, we'll make sure the firefighters are okay with it, but we'll widen it so it's 48 inches wide. I think the regulatory space is really where we can make a lot of inroads in this. I want to leave zoning up to the locals. I think if you want changes in your local zoning, go get on the ZBA board, go get on the township board, or elect people who, you know, agree. I think that was in one of the panel discussions too downstairs. But I think in terms of regulatory, my family's been in the plumbing and heating business for 130 years in Northern Michigan, and there used to never not be a residential building code. Now we have a residential building code, and it's 1,000 pages long of all sorts of different regulations. I think we need to trim some of the fat out of there, and we'll be able to see a reduction in the cost of home building or commercial buildings, what have you.
Thank you. So housing has been one of the biggest barriers that we